Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to be continuing my series of rebuilding a bunch of Tier 1 Valorant teams. And today, I'll be rebuilding Cloud9, who has a pretty interesting roster, as we'll get into here. But before we get into that, if you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe. All that really helps me out. I spent a lot of time researching players for this series, so any help like that would be appreciated. Also, leave a comment on what you guys thought of the roster, just how the video worked as well. I'm always open to criticism, constructive criticism like that, just to help improve the series maybe as I go along. Um, and yeah, anything like that. Also, a few housekeeping things. This is what I would do with this roster, not what I predict will happen. So don't get mad at me and act like this was a prediction or anything like that. But another thing, this is also a whole series of rebuilding every team and making any changes I think are needed. So if there's a player that you think should have been on the roster, they're probably on another team. If not, then they missed out. But you'll have to see at the end of at least the NA teams. I'm going to be going through all the NA teams, then Brazil, then LATAM. Then I'll do a recap of the Americas region because I'm going to do a video on every team that made 2 or more changes. But there are some teams that I just have making 1 change. So I'll do a video kind of quickly going through those and just recapping the rest of the roster changes. So stay tuned for all that kind of content. Then I'm going to go to other regions. I think I'll do Pacific first, but stuff like that. So again, don't get too upset if there's not a player that you like in this video. I've also already done a video on 100 Thieves, so if you're curious about who they picked up, go check that video out. And then last up, this is assuming that the Guard does not make it into franchising as a team, and they just split up and there's 10 teams in Americas. For the other regions, I'm just going to assume the other teams don't make changes except for Bleed, which I will be assuming that Neff and Juicy miss out, but I don't think I'll do a video on that. I think that'll just be my Pacific recap. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into the video. So now we're going to start with the season recap for this team, where they brought in Ye and Zelsis in the offseason to replace Mitch and Curry. I don't know why it keeps moving it back, but whatever. A slide. Doesn't matter. At lock-in, they finished 9th to 16th, which was a little bit of a disappointment, but they did go out against DRX and rolled them on one map and then got rolled on the other two. So it was kind of mixed feelings after that game for me. They replaced Ye and Vanity with Jake and Rooney in a very weird transfer window between lock-in and the first split, but they had to because of financials, which is kind of stupid, but whatever. And then in the VCT Americas regular season, they shocked the world and got second. And then at playoffs, they disappointed, getting fourth. And same thing in LCQ, where they got third. And then quickly, I want to go through the goal for this new roster, and it's definitely to be able to compete with the best within VCT Americas and be able to win a championship, whether it be a Masters or a Champions Trophy. This is probably high goals. This will be the highest goal, maybe other than NRG and probably some of the Brazilian and Latin teams. But overall, I think this team should have expectations of winning a trophy. Because if they end up not mid-season, then I think they're going to be a bit of a disappointment, and people are going to call for or say that they were bad roster moves. Obviously, these are hypothetical, but you get the point. So we'll start here with the changes I will be making to the current roster. So I'm not going to be touching Zeppa at all. He's going to be staying on Flex, where he's one of the best in Americas, if not the world. I'll be switching Leaf to Sentinel for reasons that I'll talk about in a bit. And then I'll be replacing Zelsis, Jake, and Rooney. Now, I think the Jake replacement, or I guess replacing Jake, is definitely a unpopular opinion. But when you get to see the roster, I think it'll be fine, and I don't think you'll be too mad. Celsius as well, but I just think there's better players than him, and obviously the Rooney one is kind of to be expected. So we'll quickly go through why I'm replacing each player. Rooney, again, as I said, this was the obvious one, but he definitely seemed to break down in some of the more high pressure moments as both a fragger and a caller. Obviously, he didn't really do much of the calling, as it was kind of said by uh, MCE and some of the players on the roster, including Rooney. Um, it was a lot of like the team calling together, kind of like what Paper X does. Um, it was like Jake, or not, it was Jake. Jake was the only one that wasn't really calling that much. Obviously, he was contributing in that scenario, but regardless, it was mainly Zelsis, Zeppa, and Leaf together, kind of doing more of the IGL duties, and Rooney just wasn't good enough as a fragger to do that. And this team, in my opinion, needs a true IGL to really compete with the best of the best in Americas. Then Jakey, um, he seemed to break down a little in the high pressure moments as well. That was kind of a thing for this team. He was great in LCQ, in my opinion. Probably one of the better smokes players at that event. But he was kind of like middling during the regular season playoffs, especially in playoffs. And then obviously this doesn't matter too much, but he does also have some weird shit going on Twitter with some of the LATAM, maybe not just fans, but people. And honestly, my replacement is just a more valuable player than he's going to be for this team. So not really too much he could have done about that unless he was like a Marved or a like even Psalm level player. Even if he was a Psalm level player, I might get rid of him for this IGL. I'll say he's just too good. And this one's gonna be the quick one, but Celsius, I really feel bad removing him because he is a great player, truly, but there's just not a spot for him on this roster. Like he's not gonna be able to play flex. He's really not gonna be able to play Sentinel. I don't really trust him to play any other role, so I'm gonna have to just let him go here, which kind of sucks. But I think it's just the only way to get this roster to truly be able to compete with the top of Americas. So now I want to talk about a little bit what my plan is for each player that I'm keeping, and we'll start with Leaf, who was my VCT Americas regular season MVP. Nothing to really do with the playoffs. Um, but yeah, he was just incredible during that stretch, and you'd hope he can get back to a form similar to that. I also did think he played really well in Sentinel, um, at Lock-In and at Red Bull home ground, and I think he can just still play like that. He's extremely flexible. He can play three different roles, whether it be duelist, flex, or sentinel. I would assume he can also play initiator. Don't know about smokes. He's played Viper a few times. Didn't love it. Um, and I'm changing him to sentinel because he really just, I don't know, he did not compete in with the best duelists in Americas in the big games specifically. Like he was kind of going blow for blow with Aspas when they played loud in the regular season. Um, but like when it came to playoffs against, I mean, I know this sounds insane with hindsight, but Artis was playing good then. When it came down to playoffs against Artis, against Demon One, against duelists like that, he just could not keep up. But changing him to Sentinel is going to allow him to do that a bit more. And then the other player here is Zeppa, who, in my opinion, was the top three flex player in Americas, um, and one of the best ones in NA. I think you got to go Ethan over him. And then I wrote this a while ago, so I don't remember who the other one would be. Um, Zekin, I guess, because he played flex last year. But he was one of their better players in terms of like the big games and kind of stuff, that kind of stuff. And he can also play multiple roles. I think he can play this flex role and initiator. Now, personally, I don't love his initiator, but he definitely could play it, and I would rather have him on that role than some random player. But I think we got a pretty good initiator player to stick Zeppa at flex. So our needs here are going to be a smokes player, a duelist, an info initiator, and an IGL. Now, I think these are the three best roles to have to be looking for in NA. Maybe swap out initiator for flex, but overall, I just think it's a great three roles to have to be looking for. Um, Even IGL, I think, is fairly populated. Like I've seen tweets about how NA has a lack of IGLs. When they have like six guys, I feel good about genuinely, at least. I might be forgetting somebody. I'm not going to name them out right now, but um, you can go watch my last video on 100 Thieves to hear me talk a little bit about those guys. Um, but here are the top free agents or just available players in every role. So you got John QT, who's a Sentinel and a Smokes player, or he can play Smokes sometimes, but mainly a Sentinel player. You got Poised, who can play Flex or Sentinel, and then you have Balin, who can play Smokes. Just three really good players. For initiators, you have Brock, BCJ, and Trent. Um, Obviously, I'm not. That's not my rankings of them in that order for both, but just again, three very very good options. For controllers, you got Xander, Scuba, Vic, and Thief, along with Vanity, or not Vanity. Picked up Vanity in the last video, so if you want to hear me talk about him, go watch that. Along with Valen, though, who does play Smokes, obviously, as it says there. And then for duelists, you have Koala Noob, Yay, Oxy, Baby Bay, and somebody I forgot to put on there when I changed it was Tex, who was also a very, very good duelist. So now I wanted to go through the players I ended up deciding on. And first up, I think this was the obvious choice for IGL, and the main reason I ended up dropping Jake was to pick up Valen, pick up another Jake, actually. That's what his first name is, in case you didn't know that. But he played with MC on the guard, was the IGL there, was very, very good, even improved into this year. He's the best free agent IGL. I said that in the last video with Vanity and immediately corrected myself now that in this world, Valen is a available player and technically a free agent. And he's just an extremely good fragger for an IGL. Like, you got, like, for fragging IGLs, you got him up there. I think Sadak is worse as a fragger than him. That's not how I wanted to put that, but he's better than Sadak as a fragger, who's a decent fragger himself. Um, you got who else? Who else frags on IGL? You got Boaster. I still think Valen's a better fragger than Boaster, even at his stage right now. Um, yeah, I mean, he's a better fragger than those IGLs. Obviously, those IGLs are better callers than him. But it is fairly close. I am extremely high up on Valen, and that's why I picked him up here. So then we have Trent, who is my second player I'll be picking up to play Info Initiator for this team. I think he's pretty easily the best player on the market right now. Um, like even better than, I mean, maybe not more valuable than Valen, but um, I think Valen is probably the most valuable player on the market. But Trent is the best. Um, I mean, he frags better than most of these duelists do. Uh, he's easily the best initiator out of the tier 2 NA players, and he's arguably the best in all of North America right now. He had offers to go to tier 1, but decided to stay in tier 2 with the guard to try to get the promotion with his guys. And he played with Valen and MC on the guard. I think this is just a super, super easy pickup for a team that wants to compete right now. And last up here, we have Tex, who I think this one is a pretty big no brainer. He played with Valen and Trent on the guard last year, which is probably the biggest reason I'm bringing him in here. But he was also arguably the best duelist in Tier 2 NA last year. Him and Koala traded blows all year, and I just think he's a better fit for this team, both because um, of the connections with the guard players and also the roles that he plays, where with Jet getting nerfed, if she really falls out of the meta, he's an extremely good chamber, like literally one of the best in the world. Um, I'd argue like maybe not in the world, but like he was up there as a chamber player with like Yay, Cryo, and Dicey when chamber was really meta. It was those four players that really were on the top of the game on chamber. And if he can get back to playing that with this team, I think that would be a huge W. He's also a fairly good Raze player, so if they don't want to play chamber but they want to play Raze, he can play that. But you also have two extremely good Raze players in Zeppa and Leaf, so you can do whatever the hell you want with this team, depending on if they want to play chamber or if they want to play Jet or if they want to play neither. I think they're really, really flexible and able to do a lot of things, which is a really good thing to have as a roster. I mean, it was a pretty big theme with my 100 Thieves roster. I don't know why I just went back, but But yeah, this is the final roster. Um, you have Tex as my duelist and Opper. You can also play Chamber, obviously. You have Zeppa as the flex slash secondary duelist when he plays like the Rays and that stuff. You have Trent on Initiator, Leaf on Sentinel, who can also play some of that secondary duelist stuff. I genuinely think he's a better Rays than Zeppa. I also think he can play Sky if Zeppa wants to play Rays, and then Tex plays um, the Chamber. Roles could get a little bit messy, but I think they'll end up figuring it out and just have more flexibility, and that will be perfectly fine. Um, and then Valen, being my controller in IGL, I feel so confident in him as a caller. He's never really had downs as a caller. It's just kind of been little inexperienced things. Maybe other than Iceland, I'll give him a little. I'll not cut him slack for that then. Um, but yeah, overall, I feel really good about this roster. The only real concern is Leaf showing up in big games and Tex being able to compete with the top of Americas as a duelist. But I do think he should be very, very good for this team no matter what. And I want to know what you guys think of this roster in the comments below. Let me know what you think of it. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.